Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and today was the Japanese Grand Prix, and it was one of the most boring races I've seen in a long time. These morning races are really killing me because getting up at 6 a.m. is difficult enough when you don't have to, but sitting through a really boring Grand Prix at 6 a.m., that's tough going, and not drifting off is a mission in itself. Everything coming up to this Grand Prix was pretty interesting. We had plenty of talking points. We had the McLaren battle at the front. We had Red Bull's issues with their car. Tsunoda and Lawson swapping places. The future of Jack Doohan's been hanging over really since the start of the season. Can Ferrari bounce back? We had all that going in. And then we had a big crash for Jack Doohan in practice on Friday. And that led to more speculation about whether or not he was going to be able to race. And Franco Colapinto wasn't around, so it looked like Ryo Hirakawa was going to get his Formula 1 debut if he couldn't. As it turned out, Jack Doohan was fine, and he was able to take part. And then in qualifying, we had this really amazing battle at the front where Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri looked like it's going to be a McLaren 1-2 at the start. And Verstappen just put in the lap of a lifetime to get on pole position. But the three of them were split by like 0.04 of a second. It was insane. Turned out qualifying was the highlight of the weekend. We got like 3 overtakes the whole race. Lewis Hamilton and Isaac Hadjar. I think Carlos Sainz overtook someone and the Haas cars swapped places. That was it. There were no other overtakes. And as for the McLaren pair, they were on par with Verstappen. Both of them were pretty close at the end. Honestly, I don't think there was really a point in this race where they were more than 3 or 4 seconds apart, which is incredible when you think the top 3, everyone's so close. Leclerc was a bit further back. Mercedes not really keeping up. Antonelli did a fantastic job in this race, but I'll get to that in a minute. Despite all these cars being so close together at the front, we didn't really get a battle for the lead, except at the pit stops. One stop race, we had Verstappen and Norris pit on the same lap, which was strange on McLaren's part anyway. And when they came out, they were together. Norris drove onto the grass, tried to get a penalty put on Verstappen, but it was nonsense. Verstappen had done nothing wrong. You know, in football, if you go to the ref and ask him to give an opposing player a yellow card, you get a yellow card yourself. I'm thinking Formula 1 needs something like that. Even if Verstappen had cut him off and forced him onto the grass and was completely in the wrong, if Norris goes on the radio and says, give him a penalty, he should also get a penalty, because it's one of the most annoying things drivers can do. Norris is trying to settle this in the steward's room rather than on the racetrack. We want them to settle it on the racetrack. Let's end these messages of, he cut me off, he tried to block me, whatever. If you say it and you're trying to get someone a penalty, you're getting a penalty yourself. Maybe a drive-through. I don't really like the time penalties, like, oh, he's got a 5-second penalty, which will be either in a pit stop or added at the end of the race. I would prefer to see a drive-through. And even though it's probably more unfair, but I do think, honestly, if you're moaning on the radio, same as a yellow card in football. Other than that, there were no real talking points to this race. So, Tsunoda and Lawson. Tsunoda did a better job than Lawson had been doing, but he didn't do amazing. He qualified 15th, so he got out of Q1 at least. And then in the race itself, he was sort of hanging around just outside the points, but he wasn't really able to make the overtakes. Now, that will be down to a strange setup choice by Red Bull themselves. They went for a big rear wing and a big front wing and lots of downforce. Maybe it was too much. Maybe it affected the straight line speed, which made it incredibly difficult to overtake without really providing any real advantage. But it would still be disappointing at his home race to only finish 12th. It's too early to judge him on this performance. He certainly did better than Lawson has been doing. But we'll have to wait and see when he has a more normal setup, a bit more equivalent setup to Verstappen. In first practice, Tsunoda looked good. He was, I think, only a 10th off Verstappen, so I think the switch was a good idea. Lawson again struggled in this race. He did at least get into Q2 and start ahead of Tsunoda, but in the race itself, I don't think he really showed anything. Isaac Hadjar scored his first points of his Formula 1 career. So I think for Lawson, in fact, I think Isaac Hadjar was 8th, wasn't he? So he's actually, Lawson's never finished 8th in a race. He's only ever finished 9th. So Isaac Hadjar's already doing better than him. Lawson really needs to pick it up because he's in this dangerous position where Red Bull just aren't going to trust him, and eventually they'll just replace him if something better comes along. And as I've said, Red Bull have a lot of really great junior drivers, most of which aren't quite ready yet, but as soon as they are, the person who's going to get replaced right now is Lawson. Otherwise, honestly, there was nothing really either Tsunoda or Lawson did that really stood out. But again, it needs more time to really... We'll see what happens at the next race. As for the rest of the field, McLaren, strong performance again. They look like the class of the field. Norris has only finished 1st or 2nd so far this season. Verstappen, absolutely brilliant drive, did nothing wrong. Perfect qualifying lap. And honestly, there was nothing in the race where really I would question it. He was just really good. Mercedes, brilliant job again. George Russell has had a very strong start to the season, but Andrea Kimi Antonelli really the star of the show here. Once he pitted, he led the race for the first time in his career, and once he pitted for tyres and came out ahead of Hamilton, it looked like Hamilton was going to be pretty close, and the 7-time world champion was going to close down Andrea Kimi Antonelli. But not only did Kimi Antonelli gap Hamilton, he did it by a big distance. So, brilliant job from the Italian. Ferrari, pretty quiet weekend from them. Charles Leclerc did okay in qualifying. He was 4th in the race, but as I said, very quiet. We didn't really see much of him. It was an okay performance. Lewis Hamilton qualifying behind Isaac Hadjar was pretty embarrassing, and he really spent the rest of the race down in 7th, not really doing anything. He went long on his tyres, but once he pitted for mediums, he came out in 7th, and that's where he stayed. He didn't really have an advantage with the tyres, which is maybe an issue. Because this race was boring, but I don't blame Suzuka. Suzuka is a great track. I watched Super Formula here a couple of weeks before this. Fantastic races there. It's not Suzuka. Something about the regulations maybe just don't work out of this track. It's not really important now. It depends how boring other races are coming up. And Bahrain is usually pretty dull. So hopefully I'm wrong, but I'm not expecting an exciting Bahrain Grand Prix. But I don't blame Suzuka. But the tyres are interesting because there doesn't really seem to be a big difference between the hards and the mediums this year. Lewis Hamilton started on the hards and his performances were comparative to the guys on mediums, and they went a bit longer, but not exceptionally longer. And Andrea Kimi Antonelli was on mediums and went actually longer than Hamilton. So honestly, mediums and hards, doesn't seem like there's a difference. They should probably... I don't know if it's possible to make the hard harder or make the mediums slightly softer. The soft tyres really didn't seem to work. I think Lance Stroll was on them for 10 laps before he came in for the first pit stop. So the soft tyres doing what it's supposed to, giving a lot of performance for a few laps. But the medium and hards, they're too close together. And honestly, I think Hamilton... He didn't really have amazing pace at all this weekend. So 7th in the points is probably another good result for him. Isaac Hadjar in 8th is another brilliant result for him. I think even though he's been out of the points so far this season, he has driven very well. This was a fantastic drive, and he had a lot of trouble in qualifying, issues with his seatbelts. So to bounce back and get 8th, brilliant job from him. Alex Albon in the points again, fantastic drive. In the points at every race so far this year, well, it's only 3. I said at the start of the season I wouldn't expect Albon to score more than 20 to 25 points. 3 races in, he's already got 18. He's actually ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the championship at the moment. So, Alex Albon, honestly, I don't know what he's doing to get the best out of that Williams, but he's honestly taken it to another level this year. And Oliver Behrman in the points, great job from him. His first points of the year, possibly, I can't actually remember. But it was a point to point. He'll take it. As for everyone else, honestly, it was so quiet in this race. I don't really remember seeing anyone. Jack Doohan was pretty close to Pierre Gasly. So from his point of view, that's a good performance. And from Gasly's point of view, it was a pretty poor performance. But nothing out of the ordinary. Aston Martin were really off the pace again. I don't know what's going on with Lance Stroll, but he was really the only car who had a really big gap to the cars in front. But Fernando Alonso was ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, but didn't really look like he was able to get anywhere close to the points. He was a few seconds behind Behrman, but wasn't really challenging him. Carlos Sainz Jr., he looked quick at times, but the race just didn't work out. Maybe it was a strategy thing. Stake had no pace this weekend, and we barely saw them. Esteban Ocon, he was down there somewhere, but I don't know. It just wasn't a very interesting race. Very little overtaking. But for the championship, I think Max Verstappen and Lando Norris are separated by a point, which keeps that very, very interesting. Oscar Piastri is not far behind. Russell and Leclerc scooping up points where they can. It's interesting. The championship is interesting. The race was not. And I am fed up of these early morning starts. So hopefully we get some exciting Grand Prix coming up. But if not, there's been plenty of exciting motorsport this weekend, and there will be next weekend. So it's not really that big a problem. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you expect Max Verstappen to win a 4th Japanese Grand Prix in a row? What did you think of the performances of Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, the Ferraris, or whoever else? Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.